welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I find myself into a strange world of comic books and activism, and I don't know yet. Yeah. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday. Once again, the terrible, terrible Thursday. I have had an extremely long week. Why have I had an extremely long week? Because I've been working since Friday. That means Saturday and Sunday this past weekend, I was working, and it's been 10-hour shifts practically every day until today, where I was finally able to clock out virtually early so I could get some mental breathing space ahead of the show. So that's how I am right now. And boy, oh boy, am I ready for some catharsis. Aren't you? I know you are. Just like me. Mr. Tickletrunk, thank you so much for the Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow-wee! Wow! Wow!
Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Appreciate it. And so before I get into the wonderful world of what we're going to be watching today, who's joining me this evening, this wonderful Thursday evening? Why, that would be Jaeger Pony, hello. Keeverdam, hello. Evil One, hello. Eric Peters, hello. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Mike R, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Lurking Gopher, hello. Mr. Tickletrunk, of course, hello. Spud Gun, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. And that's all the names I think I see. So there you go. I will say other hellos as people pop in. McZemzem, hello. So this evening, we have prepared for us, or I have prepared for you, I guess, as a chef or something. I don't know. Panels and perspective. Can comics create change? As many of you may know, the mainstream comic book industry over the last, say, I could be off by a year or three, but maybe 10 years or so, let's say, just for the sake of argument, have been overtaken in large part by activists. And I think the problem with the comic book industry of late can be boiled down to one concept. And I know I'm making a stretch here. I'm not an industry professional, but I think you can call it the death of allegory. You see, in the olden days, you would have a story in a comic book that sort of reflected an abstract conflict or concept across human history or just human experience that you could, sort of, with your imagination, insert various situations into. So, for example, the classic one is always the X-Men, right? You have Magneto and you have Professor X, and they're on both sides of the equation of the philosophy over what to do about mutant rights and mutant equality and so on. And so obviously you could put whatever struggle for equality in human history now or in the past into that example, right? Oh, it's symbolic of the civil rights era. Oh, it's symbolic of the gay rights era. Oh, it's symbolic of women's rights, on and on and on, right? Because it's a common human experience. It is a common struggle that you can insert anything into. It's an allegory. It's got subtext. Well, allegory has died, and subtext doesn't matter anymore. Everything is right, bang you on the head with today's ideological imperative in comic books. That's what we're seeing and have been seeing for some time. And it is ruining comic books because all the mythos is gone, all the art is gone, all the quality storytelling is gone. There are not stories anymore that can last the ages because they are all dated to very specific right now situations where people are using superheroes and their legacies as platforms for their own agendas. So, with all of that to predicate this presentation, there you go. So, today's bingo card is bingo card A. A as in awesome comics. If you'd like to take part in the poll that will decide the bingo card for any particular TED Excellence episode, be sure to follow me on Twitter. There's a tag in the description. There's also a tag there on the screen, if you can see it. And as well, thank you, Attack Alpaca. Happy birthday 50th to The Godfather. The first movie in the series was released in the U.S. 50 years ago today. that is something else. I mean, thankfully, I don't remember when it came out. I'm not that old, but yeah. I always, just as an aside, in my mind, whenever I go and watch a movie that's like 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and then I walk out of the movie and I think to myself, I'm probably going to forget this in about a day. I always think to myself, The Godfather had the exact same or near to the same sort of real estate of running time as the movie I just watched. And The Godfather is a classic. It told a complex story, had multiple characters, made you remember them, had dialogue that lasts the ages. And I just spent however many 2.5 whatever hours watching this movie, and it couldn't do a quarter of what that one movie did. I always have in the back of my mind, I always think, can somebody take the exact same amount of temporal real estate and tell as good of a story? Often is not the case. But anyway, a couple more hellos and then we'll jump into it. Danosaurus Crack, hello. Lambert Talamantes, hello. Janie Milquist, hello. And Roger Reynolds, hello. Gulf City Johnny Blaze, hello. Anybody else? Chicago Mike, hello. And Shell D, hello. Penny Lawson, hello. No Name, hello. All right, if I missed anybody, I apologize, but let's get into it. So, panels and perspectives. Can comics create change? I don't know, but we'll find out together. I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it. This clocks in at just under 16 minutes. Let's proceed.
Start off with asking a few questions. Just think to yourselves about your answers. You don't have
Okay, I'm going to think to myself about my answers. Everybody hear that all right? Let's see. Danosaurus says, hey, you got it right this time. Congrats, friend. Oh, your name or successfully starting a stream? Because Sunday, if you guys weren't here for Sunday, boy, oh boy, was that a disaster area, but we won't go into that. Sounds good, says Mike R. Loud and clear, says Mr. Tickle Trunk. All right, so have some questions. Let's get some answers.
have to share them or anything like that.
Okay.
So, first,
Yes.
is this a protest or a riot?
Are they destroying anything? If not, then it could be a protest. It really depends on the activities of the people involved.
Is this an insurrection or a stand for freedom?
It's neither. I would probably call it, well, I mean, based on it depends on the individuals, but it was effectively a riot, I would say. But that's just me. I don't know. The whole insurrection thing always sounded a bit too hyperbolic, but you know, it could be a lot of things depending on the motivations of individuals. But either way, I would qualify it umbrella terms as a riot, more or less.
Is this a terrorist or a man fearing for his life?
I don't know. I need context.
Now, while some of us may have differing answers to these questions, there are two common threads.
Okay.
First,
Yes.
all of our answers are a matter of perspective.
Yes, I suppose so. Yes.
Second, regardless our answer, the material events themselves don't change.
Well, I mean, okay, perspective, it depends. Again, there's a very specific definition, for example, of a protest versus a riot. Right? People marching down the street peaceably, not doing anything, but expressing their opinions verbally or with signs or whatever. There's no perspective to be had. That's not a riot by any legal definition. I mean, some jerkwad could call it a riot, but they'd be incorrect. Right? So, I mean, there's a specific definition of what a riot is versus what a protest is. As for the insurrection or a stand for freedom, I guess that depends on your perspective on the nature of the election or whatever. Sure. Okay. And this last one, a terrorist or someone protecting his safety. Again, I don't even know the context of that photo. Is that supposed to be a famous photo? Because I don't recognize it, but I don't know everything. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Scribe, leave the gun, take the cannoli. Exactly. Just there are so many memorable lines from that movie. All right? You don't even need to sort of say anything else. Just that one line conjures an image. Very few movies have that ability. Anyway, okay.
Only our understanding of them. That said, the significance in the slides I've shown you lie not only in the events or in the actions of the people themselves, but also in how we view these events and actions.
Well, again, context is important. I don't know where that first photo came from. I don't know what was going on around the photo. That last photo, I don't know what it's in reference to. I feel like I should recognize that photo, but I don't know what it is. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Can you remember a day without a protest? Today? I mean, I'm sure somebody's protesting something somewhere. But man, protests were all the rage, no pun intended, in 2020.
I'd argue that perspective actually carries more weight because it's perspective that determines how we move forward in response to these things.
Well, I guess my only question would be, is it an informed perspective? All right, that's really the dividing line. Is it an informed perspective or is it a reactionary perspective?
Death is death. You're no longer alive.
Yeah.
But perspective is what says whether a funeral is a time for mourning or a time for celebration.
Or cultural tradition says that. I don't know. Or I guess it depends on your motivation behind mourning or celebration. Are you celebrating the fact that they're dead? Or are you having a wake? You know, these are completely different things.
In 2020, Jacob Blake was shot by a police officer, an objective truth.
Yes. Are you going to give us context behind the why he was shot?
But perspective is what led some people to launch community-based social programs to lessen police presence and led others to carry rifles across state lines.
Okay, well, that's simplifying things beyond words, but yeah, okay. It is a absolute fact that a police officer shot Jacob Blake. But in the absence of context, again, is it an informed perspective on the event? And then you're bringing in Kyle Rittenhouse for some reason. Okay. Except he didn't bring the gun across state lines. The gun was already in the state before he arrived. But then I guess you would have to have an informed perspective before making such a statement, wouldn't you?
Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 people.
Yes, he did. And?
But perspective is what determined whether he was jailed for murder or exalted as a hero.
Well, okay, exalted as a hero is a completely separate thing. Jailed for murder and found not guilty are the two contrasts there. How you perceive him as an individual and his actions, that's a different cake altogether. I don't particularly see him as a hero. I see him as somebody who did something that was admittedly dangerous and a little bit reckless, and but other people individually chose to attack him, and he defended himself. I don't necessarily think it's heroic, but then either way, he was justified under the law and by the evidence. So that's not a matter of perspective. That's a matter of fact. Hero, yes, that is an opinion. That's a perspective. I'll give you that one. Whether or not he was found guilty is not much of a perspective, at least not in the case that we saw.
Perspective is what says the Boston Tea Party was a patriotic response to an oppressive government, but the events of 1992 Los Angeles were a riot.
The events of 1992 Los Angeles were a riot. That's not perspective. 2 men pulling Reginald Denny out of his truck and throwing bricks at his head has nothing to do with a political protest. Burning down stores has nothing to do with a political protest. This lady stealing clothing, that guy over on the other side stealing clothing, has nothing to do with a political protest. That's not perspective. Again, there is a very specific definition of what a riot is versus what a protest is. Now, was the Boston Tea Party a peaceful protest? No. Could it be considered a riot in and of itself? Yes. But the motivation was very, very specifically targeted at those boxes of tea. So, yeah, I'll give you a credit on the Boston Tea Party. Various things could be said to have happened there. LA riots were riots.
What's more, perspective not only affects how we examine history or current events, but also how we look at society at large and where we as individuals and people fit within it.
Sure.
What we consider to be reality is based on how we view our material conditions.
Yes, I suppose to a certain extent. Okay.
The thing about perspective, though, is it's fluid. It tends to change and morph the more we learn.
Yes. You see, that's what, again, informed perspective, right? I mean, I can have an immediate reaction to something, and I might say something in reflex to that thing. But then if I find out more context, then I have an informed perspective. And if I continue down the path that I was on before I knew more, then I'm being willfully ignorant or just ignoring reality, right? Okay, so yes, perspective to a certain extent does define our individual realities, kind of.
It evolves as we're exposed to more pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, indeed. The more you know, do.
When we look at perspective this way, we begin to see how vital it is in the quest to create a better world. We see that challenging perspectives isn't just a fast time for Facebook contrarians, but a revolutionary act.
A revolutionary act. Okay, well, I am hesitant to elevate anything that takes place in an argument on Facebook or certainly on Twitter as a revolutionary act. That seems a bit aggrandizing, but okay. I guess it depends on the intent of the parties involved, because most times I have absolutely no confidence or belief or even desire to think that I can change anybody's mind on Twitter, let's say. I suppose it has happened, and I've had my mind changed, so it's not impossible, but...
So if the way we approach the world is based on how we view it,
yes,
and the way we view the world is shaped by what we've learned and been exposed to,
yes,
we must ask the question, what exactly are we learning?
Can our children learn?
Now, I'm not here to talk about the shortcomings of American primary school education, but in regard to perspective, it's worth noting the educational climate we live in.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the educational climate we live in. I mean, I've done a few videos and examinations of that recently. Tell me all about the educational climate we live in.
We live in a time where seeking to understand racism is routinely banned.
What was I saying before about an informed perspective? Analyzing racism. Is that what you think that is? Okay, well, I've been ignoring the bingo card. I've been so engrossed in these first almost 3 minutes. Let's go to the bingo card real quick. Collectivize his own demographic. Not yet, no. Systemic institutional. I mean, he's talked about education. Yeah, I'm gonna circle that. Systemic institutional. Sales pitch for product or service. No. Childhood or family anecdote. Not yet. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, he's mentioning CRT, and that's about as close without going over. But I'm going to wait and see if he says something specific. Plays victim. Not yet. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. In his perspective talk and everything else, and he at least has demonstrated a kind of bias, unconscious or otherwise, in saying things about events that were not true, but still proceeding with that theory. Privilege, not yet. Contradicts own point or argument. Not sure what his point is yet. I mean, I guess I could call the LA riot question because there's no ambiguity there, but I'll wait. Patriarchy, no. Weightless example. We'll have to wait and see. Wage gap, no. Free space, well, we'll get to that. Feminism, no. Marginalization, not yet, although he's brought up racism. A list, not officially yet. White supremacy, not yet, but is implied. Word salad, no. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Argumentative non sequitur, not that we've gotten to yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, nope. Mind reading assumes motives. Yeah, in his little speech about the cop killed this and that and the other and then didn't elaborate. Yeah, benevolent condescension. I'm going to wait. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us any and leaves out vital context. leaves out vital context in his LA riot story and so on and so forth. So, circling free space reflexively otherwise, we have systemic institutional, microaggressions, unconscious bias, mind reading assumes motives, and leaves out vital context. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Hi, Canadian here. Why are Americans obsessed with race? Is there something in the water, or... I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have my theories. But Ebony asks, what bingo card? Bingo card A, Ebony. A as in awesome comics. And hello, Devil Fruit Zero. So critical race theory is just wanting to understand racism or analyze racism. Is that all it is? You sure about that?
Politicians attempt to criminalize accurate depictions of history.
Accurate depictions of history. You think that critical race theory is about accurate depictions of history? Are you looping in the 1619 Project by any chance? You might want to look that up. Again, perspective is great. It's better if you have an informed perspective.
For fear of making white people uncomfortable.
Oh, is that what it is? Is that what it is? No. It's not infantilizing anyone who isn't white and vilifying anyone who is white. No. It's, they don't want to make white people uncomfortable. Oh, okay. I see. Well, I don't know. I guess if, racial affinity groups in elementary schools, racial segregation in public schools, I guess if that makes me uncomfortable, I suppose that's just a white person thing. That's why all those people fought for civil rights back in the 60s. All those white people were fighting for those rights, right? Yeah.
Do we think black children are comfortable when they're told their history is one of suffering and subjugation?
No. I imagine not. I imagine if you berate someone with the notion that they are perpetual and inherent victims, they wouldn't be comfortable. On the flip side, telling somebody they're perpetual and inherent villains also makes people uncomfortable. So, yeah, boy, that CRT, man. Yeah, okay.
Or is comfortability perceived differently in this circumstance?
It's certainly taught in different circumstances, yes. You should be comfortable. You should not be comfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah.
The inevitable one class period during Black History Month, where we're taught about Malcolm X, it said that he was supposedly a Muslim radical who supported anti-white violence.
Okay, well, not being a historian on the individual, I don't know how accurate that is. I have heard it said that he was those things in one way, shape, or form. Are you going to tell us that all of those things are incorrect inherently?
A villain, but being attacked by dogs in the street by those very same white people is perfectly acceptable.
Okay, well, that the police can do something bad, and someone else can do something bad, and then the police can do something bad to the person that did something bad, but the police's actions don't somehow negate the other person's actions. So what are you trying to say here exactly?
This perspective would never lead us to believe that Malcolm said things like, I have eaten from the same plate, drank from the same glass, slept on the same bed or rug while praying to the same God as fellow Muslims whose skin was the whitest of white, whose eyes were the bluest of blue, and whose hair was the blondest of blonde. The things I've seen and experienced on this pilgrimage have forced me to rearrange much of my thought pattern and toss aside many of my previous conclusions. Okay, so does that quote mean that all the things you listed about him or that are thought about him are false? Is that what you're trying to say? Malcolm is pointing out not only the fluidity of perspective, but also how challenges to his perspective via exposure to new things caused his to change. Okay, so what perspectives of his changed? And was his prior perspective at all inside the ballpark of the things you listed that were not true about him?
Because I don't know. I've already circled leaves out vital context, but I'm even more justified now.
I never was taught that, though.
You were never taught that you can change your opinion with new information? Really? I mean, I would hope that that just kind of happens naturally as you move through life, but okay.
So, as a Black child in America, searching for identity, as all children do.
Okay, collectivize his own demographic. Searching for identity, as all children do. I thought we were going to be talking about comic books. Can we get to superheroes now or something, please?
Where do we turn to truly learn about ourselves and the possibilities of what we can be?
Well, I guess it would have to be, life experience and personal reflection and introspection. More or less. I mean, putting it as broadly as possible.
If not school, then where?
Home life, sports outside of school, friends, books you've read, hobbies you find. I don't know. What?
Having a supportive family base is a luxury not all of us have.
That is true, yeah.
The reality is, whether consciously or unconsciously, a lot of times we turn to media and entertainment.
Well, I think turning to media and entertainment is a conscious act, but sure, okay.
Entertainment can shape our view of the world much the same way education does. The difference is, with school, we know the goal is to learn.
Is it though? In today's educational climate, is it really to learn, or is it to be indoctrinated? Because I really do have my suspicions these days.
We're aware perspectives are being given to us, so it makes it easier to reject them if need be.
Not when you're a little kid. See, that's the thing. Children have a terrible habit of trusting the adults around them and, to a certain extent, believing what they are told for the most part. So children, at least the ones you have pictured here that look like they're about, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something, they probably don't have the same sophistication as a grown adult to decipher a informed perspective versus a agenda-based perspective.
We kind of look at school like an isolated chamber separate from the real world.
Yeah, that is a problem. That really is a problem. It should not be so. There should be far more transparency than a lot of schools and teachers and school districts are working for right now. Schools should not be the parents of the children, nor should they think of themselves as the children's parents.
We've all heard kids who've gotten a bad grade in pre-cal say things like, I'm never going to use this in real life anyway. That implies to them, school isn't real life.
No, that implies to them that more likely than not, barring them going into a field that requires such mathematical excellence, let's say, it will not be necessary in real life. Right? I mean, if I'm taught something that has absolutely nothing to do with any vocation I'm either interested in or any field of study that I ever have any, notion to pursue, that's what that means. Right? That's what that means. But school isn't real life in the sense that it encompasses all the experiences you're going to have outside of a closed, structured environment, if that's what you're getting at.
Entertainment, though, we look at as a reflection of reality.
Again, if we're talking in an allegorical sense, perhaps, or if we're talking about a documentary, maybe more so. But of course, you'd have to take into consideration the perspective of the documentarian.
And in this arena, the fact that perspectives are being given is much more subtle.
Is it though? I mean, your mileage may vary from show to show and book to book, movie to movie. Subtlety sometimes is a lost art these days. Again, the death of allegory.
Propagandas and ideas get to dance in front of our face behind the guise of fiction.
Yeah.
Decades of sitcoms tell us the standard family unit is a white, hetero, upper middle class, nuclear family.
Yeah, except for All in the Family, Married with Children, The Cosby Show, The Jeffersons, Rock, Friends. Friends is kind of a, I guess, thing. Oh, how about Cheers? What about Cheers? How about Night Court? I don't know. I like those shows.
If that doesn't describe you, well, you must be a deviation from the norm.
Yeah, that's why Roseanne and All in the Family did so well, is because they spoke to that sort of more common denominator amongst the country. But I guess those shows didn't exist, I suppose.
When I was 15, it seemed the only time I would see Black people associated with wealth was in music videos. And while there are plenty of financially successful rappers, not every affluent Black person is a musician.
You're correct. You're correct. And here's the thing. Not every white person is an affluent individual with a house and a picket fence. Or are you going to at least, not every white person is Donald Trump. Let's put it that way.
But how would one know that if you never got to see it?
How would you know that a Black person could have money? I don't. If you couldn't see it, how would you know it? I don't know. How could you?
And what we see matters. See, entertainment isn't just art imitating life. For many of us, it's escapism.
Many of us, most people, it's escapism because you're taking time out from real life to watch a movie or a TV show or something. You're mostly sitting still and doing something. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Reading a book can be escapism, and you can be learning something in the process. And you can learn something from TV too, right? But it's almost always escapism. Unless you're just watching the nightly news or something, it's rarely ever informative in that way, if you know what I mean.
A chance to leave behind our worldly woes and let our imagination soar.
Yes.
Especially with science fiction and fantasy, a favorite genre of the comic book medium.
Okay, now we're getting to comic books. It's only taken us 6 minutes.
The caveat, though, is that for Black kids, even in the places we escape to, we don't get to see people that look like us.
There are no Black people in sci-fi fantasy. Got it.
We're not even encouraged to imagine ourselves in different ways.
There are no Black people in any genre of fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, comic book, or otherwise. Okay.
And trust me, kids notice this all on their own. When I was young, my first love was an anime.
Oh, anime. Okay. Well, what was your favorite anime?
Called Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, Dragon Ball Z. Oh, okay. So you loved that. Why? You couldn't see yourself in it, right? If I'm understanding your implication.
I watched it faithfully. I made up my own characters. I pretended to be the characters.
Whoa. Wait a second. You made up your own. You pretended to be the character. How? You couldn't see yourself in there, right? How could you imagine yourself involved in that world in any way, shape, or form? I mean, you can't see yourself. So how could you imagine yourself anywhere near it? Contradicts own point or argument. Circling that one. Also, childhood or family anecdote. We got that one too. Okay. I'm really hoping for a bingo. Hopefully 2 bingos, because I made a couple of new bingo stingers.
But in the back of my mind, even though this set me on my current career path, I always knew something was off.
Whoa. So something that you could not see yourself in. Something that you imagined characters for, inserted yourself into, set you on your current career path. Okay, what was the major flaw?
There was no one that looked like me.
Yeah, okay, well, here's the thing. If you are so focused on and value so much skin color as a affirmative element to your world. I hate to tell you this, but you might be treading into ground you don't want to admit you're treading into. I'm just saying.
Well, there were these blatantly racist caricatures.
Oh, you mean the cherry-picked images from... Wait, okay, not knowing Dragon Ball Z, I don't know. Are those meant to be caricatures of black people? If they are, that's pretty blatant. But then I don't know the context. Are you going to give us context?
But this doesn't look like me.
Then why are you concerned?
And my friends and I at the lunch table made a conscious effort to ignore that. And
why? Why would you ignore it? I mean, you saw racism there. Again, I don't know Dragon Ball Z. I don't know who created these characters. I don't know what their motivation was. You obviously perceive them as racist caricatures. Okay, that's your perspective. I have no idea if it's an informed perspective, but I'll take your word for it. So what did you do? If this, piece of media had these things, you immediately rejected it, right? Whoops, wrong one. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Yes, Japanese culture is America. I mean, it was broadcast in America, so somebody must have given their okay, right? But Gulf City Johnny Blaze, oh, fuck you. Mr. Popo wasn't racist. He was made to look like a Japanese god or something like that. Well, now, Johnny Blaze, that might be, again, an informed perspective, which apparently our speaker really has demonstrated he does not care for. So
instead, we decided another character was actually the black one. Let's take a look at that character. Piccolo.
You decided that the green character was the black character. Okay, so you used your imagination to insert yourself or your very important skin color into the cartoon. Okay, there's a lot of projection going on here. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But then again, you were kids, so,
A green, chaotic neutral from a different planet. Not black at all, not even human. But on some level, we, a group of 9-year-olds, were so hungry to see ourselves represented that we latched on to anything we could relate to even a little bit.
So even from a young age, you were very obsessed with race. Okay.
Unfortunately, all we had was a green alien.
No, you really didn't. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I really don't know how old you are. But I watched plenty of cartoons that had black main characters when I was a kid. There was Mr. T. There was Cops fighting crime in a future time. Bulletproof. I mean, there were plenty of places you could find characters that looked like you. And I'm sure even in the era that you grew up in, which I'm pretty sure is far more recent than myself, there was plenty of media you could find. Because we're not living, and you did not live in the 1950s.
Imagine if the depictions didn't make us feel marginalized.
Marginalized? Oh boy, marginalization. The depictions did not make you feel marginalized. Okay, so Japanese culture didn't fit with you as an American 9-year-old. I imagine. So Dragon Ball Z went out of its way to make you feel marginalized?
Would my friends have continued to draw? I pored over anything science fiction, and I loved all of it. But still, in the back of my mind, the question always lingered. Dad, ain't no black folks in the future?
Star Trek. I'll just throw that one out there. Star Trek. I mean, it's such an easy example to go to. You're really just going to ignore Star Trek or Star Wars, for example. Really? Okay, yeah, there are no black people in the future in science fiction fantasy. They've never been depicted. They've never existed. You're right. Gosh, yeah, especially at your age. I mean, I'm terrible at guessing people's ages, but I'm assuming that this young man is younger than I am by a good stretch. So even in my day, okay.
But fret not. The same hammer that can be used to destroy can be used to build.
The same hammer that can be used to destroy. Which hammer is that? Might I ask? What?
We can use entertainment to give representation for those that need it, while
circling plays victim. For some reason, I don't know. Just because, I guess. Okay. Yeah, entertainment is used to destroy, so you're going to use it to build. Okay.
we can use entertainment to give representation for those that need it, while also painting a picture of what the world can be.
Yes, because none of these things have ever been done before at all, ever in television or books or movies or anything. Yeah. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Landau Calrissian. I'm suddenly forgetting the name of Padme's bodyguard, Tanaka, right? And then there was his nephew or whatever when they didn't hire the actor back. Let's see. G.I. Joe. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about like representative diversity in a time where it was for kids and everything else. Look at G.I. Joe, for crying out loud. Or Mask. Remember Mask? Does anybody remember Mask? Maybe, maybe not. It's just... Anyway. Our speaker is either being deliberately ignorant of just basic science fiction, fantasy, history, and media, or he honestly doesn't know, which really boggles my mind. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Star Wars, Star Trek, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Matt. Yeah, exactly. Thundercats. Well, I mean, Thundercats, they were all cats. They were like tan and blue and orange and stuff. So, I mean, you can inject... Or what about Tiger Sharks? Huh? Or Bionic 6. Remember Bionic 6? Bionic 6. That had one of the greatest, like, intro songs and everything. Bionic 6. Anyway.
I should note, though, representation isn't the end-all, be-all.
Really? Because you could have fooled me with the last 7 minutes of your presentation.
Without action, representation is just tokenism.
You have whittled down your complaint to the color of something's skin in a cartoon. You selected the green guy to represent you, and now you're complaining about tokenism? What? Proceed.
It doesn't matter if you get to see new possibilities if you don't have access to the resources to make those possibilities a reality.
Oh, okay. Well, you tell me. How many Dragon Balls do you imagine you're going to be able to collect in reality? Right? I mean, what are we talking about here?
That said, I also think that in order to do something, you must first believe you can do it.
No. I absolutely reject that. You know why I reject that? Because I had absolutely no belief that I would be still doing YouTube 5 years down the line. I still have very little belief week to week that I'm doing YouTube, just as an example. I threw my hat in the ring and I took a risk with very little confidence that I would have anything approaching the modicum of success that I could possibly imagine for myself. I do things without a belief in success all the time. And I've done so in the most, the large part of my life. Like every girl I have approached to get a date or to just talk to, I had absolutely no belief that I would be successful. Now, making the decision to take the risk in spite of your doubt, that's a trigger. And I don't mean trigger in the sense that you might think I mean a trigger. That's the trigger for something to happen. It'll either go well or it'll go badly. Either way, hopefully you walk away having learned something. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Waiting for the WTF moment. I know. I am too. Well, haven't gotten there yet. Getting close, but we'll see. And thank you, Top Tier Alexander. Here's a novel idea. Like me, create your own characters that are all black. The story I am working on is a black man, a black MC. Shock. Yeah, a black main character. How unique would that be? Oh my gosh. And is that all there is? Right? I mean, in a much more literal sense to what our speaker is getting at here, the Martin Luther King quote is even more relevant. Judge them not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. If you have a well-written, well-established character, short of there being some kind of cultural imperative to the backstory or something, does it matter what they look like? I mean, if we're just if we're not talking about like some comic book rock creature thing or something, whatever. Okay, well, where are we going, speaker? You don't like tokenism, but you're looking for tokens, and yeah.
And it's very difficult to believe you can do something when you're constantly told or shown that you can't.
Well, I suppose there is an implicit message from Dragon Ball Z that you cannot be a cosmic karate supernatural champion alien thing. So, okay, who's telling you can't do something?
And that's exactly what's happening when the hero never looks like you, or the only time you see yourself in your favorite show, you're being caricaturized.
You'll never see yourself in your favorite show unless you are starring in your favorite show. I have said it before, and I will say it until the day I die. Racial identitarianism is poison. Doesn't matter what race we're talking about. Racial identitarianism is poison. If that is your biggest concern, you are looking for the wrong value system. But you never see characters that quote unquote look like you. Okay, well, for the sake of this presentation, I will shift my perspective to your very literal interpretation. You never see characters who are black in science fiction, fantasy, in superheroes, in wherever. I mean, presumably comic books. We're going to get to comic books at some point, right?
But it doesn't have to be that way.
You're right. It doesn't have to be that way. It hasn't been that way for a very long time. I'm going to say since at least the 60s. Okay? At least the 60s. There have been black characters in sci-fi fantasy, in comic books, in movies, etc. All right. Now, if you want to talk about proportions, I'm sure you can argue, and you would be accurate, that the proportions of main black characters or even important side characters in movies and comic books and so on have been decidedly smaller in number than others. All right. But I mean, then your favorite show was Dragon Ball Z. That didn't stop you from imagining yourself somewhere else and doing something. So now what? Yeah, okay. Where are we going with this? We are over halfway through this presentation. So if you're going to get to the point, now's the time.
Well, now we use entertainment to our own benefit.
Yes, the entertainment industry has never been leveraged by anyone for their own benefit, either in financial success or ideological progress or anything. You're right. Never before in history has anyone ever tried to use entertainment media to better themselves or make social change. It's just never occurred before. Like, let's see. How about The Thin Blue Line? You ever see that movie, Errol Morris? It made a big change in somebody's life, a couple people's lives. How about The Day After? the nuclear Holocaust terror movie from ABC back in what, 85 or something, 80, 83? Yeah, that sent out a message. That was a giant PSA. Yeah, no, it's never been done before. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Brave Star, Bionic 6, The Real Ghostbusters, Defenders of the Earth, Captain Planet, Mr. T. Sorry, I started to relive my childhood and couldn't stop. Man, Defenders. What about Exo Squad? Remember Exo Squad? Brave. I haven't thought of Brave Star in forever. Man, Brave Star. And yeah, Bionic 6. Bionic 6. I just can't get that out of my head. Bionic 6.
And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean black people.
No. Oh, no. Even though that's all you've been talking about so far as the people that need this. Okay, well, who else are you talking about?
I mean, the sum total of the human race that wants to see an end to oppression and injustice.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me true. What is your plan, or what have you done, I suppose?
And that brings me to my main point.
Okay.
Anime and comic books.
Anime and comic books. Your main point is anime and comic books. Okay.
I know it may not seem like that based on what I've been saying so far, but
You are absolutely correct. It has not seemed like that in the least.
Promise I'm here to talk to you about comic books.
Okay.
A lot of the ideas I've been discussing are starting to manifest in shows like Abbott Elementary, Insecure, Atlanta, work from N.K. Jemisin. But when it comes to challenging perspectives, comics are a uniquely impactful tool for a few reasons.
Not so much anymore. Have you seen comic book sales recently? And do you have any idea what the major factors have been in those sales, and consequently affecting the persuasive power of comic books? Now, anime, on the other hand, it's interesting that you bring that up, because for the most part, anime has not given the knee to the ideological impulses that otherwise American comic books have been giving into lately. So,
First, comics have an undeniable connection to the youth. They have a negative stigma attached to them that only makes kids like them more.
What decade are you living in?
What?
What is that? What the fuck is that?
When I was a kid, here's where my old man stuff comes out now. When I was a kid, comic books had a stigma. When I was a kid, being interested in sci-fi fantasy had a stigma. You have, I mean, I'm guessing. Again, I don't know how old you are, but if that's what you think, you have no idea how little of a stigma there is today for comic books and sci-fi and being a nerd. You have got to be kidding me. Comic books do not have a stigma insofar as like, oh, now you're an outsider. Now, individual comic book companies have created stigma for themselves over the quality of their work. But being interested in comic books these days, being interested in anime, nowhere near as stigmatized as 30 years ago. I mean, whatever you think is bad now, I got beat up over. So I have no idea what you're talking about. You're talking about a world that has not existed for at least 20 years.
And they kind of have this punk rock effect in that they represent a counterculture lifestyle that gives community to its fans. This is mainstream, dude. Are you kidding me? Comic conventions are mainstream. They are gigantic, billion-dollar enterprises, and they have been for the last 20 years. Those pictures on the screen right now, that looks nothing like the comic book conventions I went to when I was a kid. When I went to a comic book convention, it was tables with boxes and sweaty, weird comic book dealers behind the table. And if you were lucky, there might be some artists or some inkers or some writers there from the industry whose names were unknown to the general public, and only nerds had any idea who Eric Larson was, or Randy Emberlin, or, good God, Mark Texeira, right?
Mike Barron. I mean, these names meant nothing to anybody. So give me a break. This is mainstream stuff now and has been for several years. Mr. Tickletrunk, thank you so much. Most sold comics today are now from Japan, predominantly purchased by white kids in North America. So we should start demanding white people in anime? Yes, we need a representation in anime. We really do. I mean, I can't enjoy an anime if I can't see myself in it. I reject anything where I don't see myself in them. All right? That's why I liked G.I. Joe as a kid, because there were so many small, shy, socially awkward, glassed kids in that show.
You don't just like anime and comics. It becomes part of your identity.
I guess it depends on the individual and how they see themselves. Sure. Okay.
You wear the t-shirts, you decorate your room with the figurines, you get the tattoos. But what if these tattoos represented something more than the stores that they came from?
The stores that they came from? Well, I would hope the tattoos represent something more than the stores that they came from. Otherwise, they're just the logo of the tattoo parlor. Which makes me wonder, A, does Satsu have any tattoos? Because I don't remember. And B, if he doesn't, which anime character should Satsu get tattooed on himself? I don't know what his favorite anime character is. Probably something from My Hero Academia. Just, I always heard him talk about that more than anything else. So I don't know. I mean, oh, well, I wonder if does our speaker have a Dragon Ball Z tattoo? That'd be cool.
Next, comics get kids to read, and we all need to read more.
This is true. I mean, some of my first reading experiences had to do with comic books, and comic books got me to read more words than probably most anything else at that point, except for like the Indian in the Cupboard series and The Great Brain. I read a lot of those books. If you guys don't know what The Great Brain is, oh boy, those are great books.
I'm not even spending time supporting that statement. We need to encourage literacy.
Yeah, you know, and that's why the Harry Potter series is. I mean, for whatever other controversies J.K. Rowling's has become embroiled in or had embroiled upon her recently, in my book, no pun intended, J.K. Rowling's will be a saint forever because she got kids to read, like, fervently, and that's always a good thing. Thank you, Chicago Mike. What if you see yourself as Slimer from Ghostbusters? Well, I mean, Slimer is green, so you can just put yourself in there. Did you know that purportedly, as rumor has it, Slimer is meant to be the ghost of John Belushi? That's sort of like the little memorial to John Belushi in the original Ghostbusters movie. Yeah.
And comics do that, though not conventionally. See, the Western perspective of sequential art is that it holds no real literary value.
Watchmen. I mean, I know that is an easy rejoinder, but as a primary example, Watchmen, as a graphic novel where that second word really does apply. And as we know, Watchmen is a totally underground subculture item that nobody knows about at all. Or V for Vendetta. I mean, I'm leaning a lot onto what's his name here in the writing and stuff. Yeah, Alan Moore. Yeah. What else? What's another? The Mouse. That was just in the headlines recently, right? The comic book about the mouse in sort of Nazi Germany. Or what about From Hell? I mean, the movie's kind of but the comic book graphic novel. I mean, again, if you were doing this presentation in 1995, okay, it might make a heck of a lot more sense. But you're not. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Again, examples from Japanese culture, Western culture. Yeah, Western culture. Yeah, because Trigun doesn't rely on Westerns for its plot points and aesthetics, right? Anyway.
And while that may be bad for the image of Hajime Isayama, Brian K. Vaughan, or Art Spiegelman, it's also a double-edged sword.
Whoa. Again, okay, maybe my comic book nerdery is just showing through here because I have an appreciation for comic books maybe beyond the ken of mortal people younger than myself. But it all depends on the author. It all depends on the book and the story. And I've seen and read some excellent... I did a reading of my favorite Punisher comic book not too long ago on my channel here. It is a one-issue, like 27-page story, or 22 pages or something. It's very short, but it is some of the best condensed, concise, brief writing of any story about the Punisher I've ever read. And I see it as literature practically. You know, it's a combination of words and images, but man. Anyway.
The other edge is comics become more appealing to kids who don't want to read. I'm talking about the kids who may never pick up a copy of Stokely Speaks or Wretched of the Earth, but have read hundreds of chapters of Naruto, One Piece, and Saga.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Comic books can be an entryway to reading and imagination and so on. Yes. Okay. You sold me. Not that you needed to, but you sold me.
Thanks to comics, these kids are readers and they don't even realize it.
Excuse me? What? They're readers and they don't realize it. Boy, you know, they go to a lot of effort to put their eyes on words and synthesize the ideas being expressed into their brains in order to continue following the story along for... Oh my God.
What?
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Okay, where are we going with this? We have 5 minutes left, and I feel like we haven't even gotten to the primary argument yet. What are we doing here?
Last year, I was called upon by AMP and JCPS to teach a comic book course for some local high schools.
Oh, and I'm not being facetious here. Are you a comic book artist or a writer or something? I honestly, he hasn't said, has he said yet? I mean, he talked about Dragon Ball Z setting him on his career path. I mean, I guess I could infer that from the title, but I don't know. So,
at the beginning of every class, the students will read a different comic.
That sounds great. Okay.
So many parents...
Wait, what are they holding up? Something... I can't make it out. I want to say it's something heart. I don't know. It's hard to... It's all orange. I can't tell. They all read a different comic. Okay.
Teach a comic book course for some local high schools.
Uh-huh.
At the beginning of every class, the students will read a different comic.
Mm-hmm.
So many parents reached out to me to say how happy they were that their kids were reading.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Reading anything, as long as you're reading something for the most, I mean, not anything, you don't want to be, I guess it depends on what we're talking about. I don't even know what we're talking about. Poker Pierce, thank you so much. Ayo, hope all is well. Scribe and chat. Well, I hope all is well with you as well. Poker Pierce, thank you so much.
They had tried different methods, but it was comics that did the trick.
Okay.
And despite the Western perspective, comics do hold literary value.
Despite the Western perspective. The Western perspective. Gosh, where did all those graphic novels I grew up with come from? The Western perspective. What?
Attack on Titan is a beautifully written examination of different responses to fascism. Mouse is a Pulitzer Prize-winning interview with a Holocaust survivor.
Hey, I brought up Mouse. Is that a Western perspective by any chance? Or am I... Attack on Titan. I don't know who does Attack on Titan. I admit, aside from seeing some photos of the cartoon or the anime, I don't know anything about Attack on Titan, except it's like basically giants things, stuff. I don't know.
Thanks to comics, kids got to explore these ideas without feeling like they're being forced to read. To them, they're not reading at all. They're escaping.
Right. That's how kids see it. They're not reading at all. Yeah.
Why aren't we giving them better places to escape to?
Well, I don't know. What better place do you suggest? If all of these classic award-winning publications and world-renowned pieces of literature that are also comic books exist, I don't know. Where else could we go? Where else should we go?
Why aren't we using this to deliver the positive ideas we know they're not getting in school?
Oh, the positive ideas they're not getting in school. Oh, what positive ideas might those be? Are you talking about critical race theory? Because, boy, a more positive set of ideas I can't possibly imagine.
Lastly, because comics use both visual and linguistic modes of communication so heavily, they can deliver ideas in a way no other medium can.
Really? God, it had never occurred to me in that light. Golly gee whiz, Batman. You're just laying down these diamonds of revelation. I can't help myself.
Nothing plants the seeds of an idea better than the written word.
Nothing? Have you ever gone to an art museum? Have you ever listened to a piece of music that has no dialogue, let's say, if we have to get very specific about it? Are you sure about that?
Words can slither into the crevices of your mind and lie dormant, waiting for the perfect moment to bloom.
Or you can get a song stuck in your head for 3 weeks and it just drives you crazy. I mean,
but reading is one thing. Seeing is something else.
And you are all about the aesthetics. So are we going to get to the point now? Ebony Williams wants to educate me. TLDR, Attack on Titan is about humans fighting giant naked cannibals and the mystery behind said cannibals. Aha! Giant naked cannibals. So are they eating themselves? Or are they like fee-fi-fo-fum on the humans? See, these are the things that come into mind. Okay, you have 4 minutes left. Well, a better part of 5 minutes left. We're at 11:19, and there's 15:55 in this thing. So are you going to get to the point?
When we only read about tragedy and injustice, our minds tend to turn the atrocities into abstractions.
Are they fictionalized? Mr. Tickletrunk, thanks so much. Bionic 6. Bionic 6. Oh, man. I just remember that part. I remember the images. I remember that the art style of the opening sequence for Bionic 6 just looked like that almost sort of pseudo-realistic kind of art that you had back in the old cartoons. And just that opening song was just very catchy. Yeah.
The tragedy exists only so long as your eyes are on the page. So in this regard...
That's because it's called escapism, right? That's why it's called escapism. You're going briefly in your mind, theater of the mind, to a place that does not exist or isn't actually happening. And then as soon as you take your eyes away, you can remember, the real world is here. You extolled escapism. So yeah, that's what happens.
The tragedy exists only so long as your eyes are on the page.
Tragedy exists in real life. That's why we have escapism, to go somewhere else for a while. And yes, while tragedy can occur in our escapism, it is tragedy that we can moderate. Holy cats! Connell McMahon, thank you so much. A small dividend for taking a chance and betting on yourself. Do keep up the great content. Connell, thank you so much. That's very generous of you. Very nice of you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I feel very fortunate every day that I come on here, that I can do this. And most especially that I come on here and people show up to join in with me. That's That's more gratification than I get in the rest of my life. I'm so lonely. Anyway, yeah, but no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much, Connell. And I hope I said your name correctly. Because as we know from previous presentations, getting people's names right is very important. And I try to get them right all the time. Like Payar D. Bayar, and Burgid. Yeah.
So in this regard, reading helps us to understand, but seeing adds a tangible layer that helps us to feel.
Yes, I know how comic books work. I know how TV shows work and movies work. I understand. I get it. Okay, please.
When I read about the murder of George Floyd.
Wasn't this supposed to be about comic books?
I was upset.
Yeah.
My mind triggered its defense mechanisms and turned the information into just that, information. George Floyd didn't have a face. His death was an idea. It was easy to compartmentalize. But when I saw the video, when I saw Derek Chauvin's knee digging into Floyd's neck as he screamed out, I was outraged.
Yeah, you and practically everybody else in the country at that stage of the game. When that video first came out, you had people on MSNBC and Fox News losing their minds. So, yeah, you were not alone. You are not alone.
I was repulsed.
Yes.
I was motivated.
Okay.
This was no longer a statistic or a series of words on a Twitter timeline. This was a human being that looked like me.
If that had been a white person, are you telling me you wouldn't have cared? Is that really what is so important to you, that you cannot relate to anyone or anything unless they either look like you or you can project a superficial veneer over something so you can feel like it's connected to you? Do you understand how shallow that makes you sound? I'm not a mind reader. I don't know your heart. But what you've been saying over the course of this presentation does not reflect well on your character. Do you understand this? Why could you not just empathize with another human being regardless of their skin tone? God, it is honestly upsetting to me to hear grown adults talking about these things and not realizing just what they are contributing to.
Having his life unjustly ripped from him in the middle of the street while people filmed it. The pain I felt from witnessing such tragedy moved me in a way that only reading about it couldn't.
And again, I have to ask, would you have felt so motivated if it had been of someone who was not of your skin tone? Because you make that very important here. Thank you, Keeper Dan. Tony Timpa was made fun of by cops when they killed him after kneeling on his back for 14 minutes. I'll be completely honest. I've never heard that name before. I wonder why that is. I wonder if our speaker's ever heard that name before. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him if he hadn't. So, Thank you, Keeper Dan. Just another example.
And that's the thing about comics. You have to read them and look at them.
Boy, man, I'm just rolling in the revelation.
Comics can give you the words to plant the seeds and give understanding while also providing the imagery to concurrently make those seeds bloom.
Yes.
What other medium can make this claim?
Movies. Oh, you're talking about like literal words printed on the thing? Oh, okay. Political cartoons. Well, unless you want to classify those as comic books. Comic strips. I don't know. How about this? How about a movie with subtitles? There you go. Haha, gotcha. Movie with subtitles. Uh-huh.
It's for these exact reasons that I make comics now.
You make comics. Okay. Are you a publisher? Are you an artist? Are you a writer? Are you all of those things? Do you do your own comic? Are we finally going to get to the point of this? And are we not on the precipice of a sales pitch?
I pivoted from a 12-year career in music to comic writing because I'd been compelled to deliver a message, and comics were the best vessel.
Okay, well, what's your comic or comics, and what's your message?
To me, Blackheart isn't just about telling an entertaining story.
Whoa! Wait a second. Wait. Is that lady got a ball gag in her mouth? Whoa! Holy cats. Okay. All right. Well, first off, and I'm just guessing here from the title and the imagery and your speech so far, you're really big on the aesthetics of the characters. It's not easy to find now, I don't think. You might be able to find digital copies online or something. But there was a comic book series that I was just partially obsessed with when I was a kid because it was so interesting and there was so much like implied about the universe it was building and everything. It's called Tribe. Image Comics produced the first issue, and then there was some kind of behind the scenes something went on, and then the artist went on to produce, I think, the only other 2 issues independently in a different comic book publisher or something. But Tribe, dude, you should look up Tribe. I thought Tribe was cool. I really wish that it had gone on, but it only got I think I own all the issues that exist. I mean, insofar as number of issues, not like I have everyone that's ever been printed, but Blackheart. Okay, so we have a bow and arrow kid. We have a lady. We have a guy with a cybernetic hand and a sword. We have BDSM Mr. Zaz ball gag lady. And then we have, the guy over here, he reminds me visually of the character from that video game, All of Your Base or Belong to Us. But, okay, this is your comic book. I'm circling sales pitch for product or service. I don't see how I get around that one. Okay, tell us about your comic book and the scarred up. I mean, is her bra pierced? Or what is going on here?
I saw an opportunity to be an example for all the kids doodling in their notebooks or daydreaming of fantastical worlds.
You think very, very highly of yourself. You represent you.
I want to show them you have a talent. And this
yeah. I'm sure they need you to tell them that.
This talent can be a viable career path, even without outside help. I wanted to highlight the intersection between Black culture and geek culture.
Because such a thing has never occurred before. Tribe. Back in the 90s. I know it's only one example, but it's not the only example. And it's not the first comic book to have Black superheroes, but it's the one that comes to my mind because I liked it and it was cool and nobody's heard of it before and I feel so special being able to talk about it.
Not because I'm trying to create Black geeks, but to provide affirmation for the plenty that already exist.
Yeah, because there is absolutely no environment, media, space at all these days for geeks of any particular stripe or color to exist and thrive and be inspired. It just doesn't happen. I am glad you found the thing you like. I really am. And for anybody that you do inspire, I'm glad. But you're talking like this is all stuff that doesn't exist or hasn't existed for decades. And far beyond what happened with George Floyd. This comic book came about because of George Floyd. There have been comic books out before George Floyd. I don't know if you know that. Thank you, top tier, 20 on the white characters being the villains. I don't know. I would love to. I mean, I'll tell you what, that cover has me very curious to know the backstories and powers of those characters, especially Mrs. Zaz. I'm going to call her Miss Zaz until I know otherwise.
When you never see yourself, it's easy to gain the perspective that you're an outsider.
Never, what never, what never, hardly ever. Mr. Tickle Trunk, thank you again. When he finds out about Spawn and Blade. I know, right? Spawn. Such a low level. Nobody knows about Spawn. Come on. You kidding me? Black Lightning. Right? No. Cardiac. Anybody know about Cardiac from Marvel Comics, Spider-Man's enemy? Right? Or Prowler? Remember Prowler? Anybody? Thank you, Kiefer Dam. CRT, comic reading time. Oh, Kiefer Dam. I like that one. All right, we're almost done with this, I think.
Blackheart's goal is to give the perspective that not only are we welcome here, we belong here.
Tribe. I know. I'm just a fan. What can I tell you? I'm a geek for Tribe. Look it up.
Spider-Man wearing a pair of Jordans or T'Challa leading a war charge.
Oh, T'Challa. Oh, where did T'Challa come from? When did T'Challa show up? Who created T'Challa? And does that mean that characters have to match their authors in order for them to be appreciated? Thank you again, Poker Pierce. Did the book take inspiration from Screw the Roses? I don't know. I mean, that character might have. I wonder if her name is like Rose Thorn or something. She's got all these scratches over her. That'd be amazing. Oh boy, if you could turn Screw the Roses, Screw the Roses, Give Me the Thorns. If you could turn that, like if that book was a character, I wonder who.
Is only the tip of the iceberg.
Sure it is.
We need even more. Because
Okay.
most of all, my goal is to give Black kids a chance to see themselves from a perspective different than the ones most often provided.
Again, if this was 1985 or hell, even 1997, maybe this would be inspirational, revolutionary. We're in 2022. Black Panther, the movie, made billions of dollars at the box office. What are you talking about?
The industry we love so much at times doesn't seem to love us back.
What are you talking about?
That leaves it up to us to love ourselves.
The all new, all different X-Men. I just go back to that one. Go back to that one when the original X-Men disappeared on Krakoa and Professor X had to find a new team of X-Men. And everything that has proceeded after that.
We must be willing as a people to be open to new perspectives.
A people. I see. At this point, I have to ask, which people are you talking about? Because you've been categorizing everybody on the basis of race so far. So who are you talking about?
We must be willing to challenge the perspectives of others. We have to do the work necessary to give positivity to our most impressionable.
Yeah, such a thing has never, ever been considered before. You are a true revolutionary and visionary. Golly gee whiz.
The youth.
The youth.
For a long time, to me, Black representation meant Black trauma.
Well, that is you. That is your perspective, isn't it? And whose responsibility is your perspective?
Representation meant Black trauma, slave stories.
That's all it... Okay, well, if you marinated yourself in nothing but slave stories your entire life, well, I guess you would have a very skewed perspective. You know, society has moved the needle quite a long ways since slavery times. I don't know if you're aware.
And while slavery is a part of American history and its ramifications need to be understood, when all you see is slavery and trauma, it stops being history and starts becoming identity.
All you see is slavery and trauma. All you see. Okay.
Black folks aren't just victims of slavery.
You're correct. They're not. They haven't been for a couple hundred years now, practically. You're right. Like not in America anyway. I can't say for other countries on this planet, but yeah, okay.
Black people are lawyers, scientists, doctors, architects.
Whoa. How? What? Huh? They are? Really? Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. The industry we love doesn't love us back. During a time when the entire entertainment industry is pandering to this guy, I can't err. Just really, oh, gosh, how do you know this? Can you see them? I mean, if you can't see them, you can't be them, right?
Painters, poets, and parents.
God, you mean it's almost like they're people. If you can, what the hell are you talking about?
Black folks are human beings.
No. My mind is blown. I'm sure your audience had no idea. Well, thanks. Okay. Benevolent condescension. If not true before, certainly right now. Benevolent condescension.
And that's not a cry for bigots to see the humanity in others.
Bigotry is about hating somebody over their ideas. Racism is about hating somebody over their skin color. I know I'm a stickler for this distinction, but it is very important. They are two different concepts.
I don't really care about that. It's encouragement for us to see the beauty within ourselves.
Us? Who's us? What? Are you categorizing people and your target and your care on the basis of race, or are you just not? I think I know the answer, but you keep wavering back and forth between concepts here.
To look at ourselves in new lights. Something like skiing shouldn't be racialized.
Skiing should not be, you're right. Skiing should not be racialized. And in my mind, it didn't even occur to me until you just said it was by implication.
But it's common perspective that certain activities are for white people and other activities are for black people.
Oh, okay. Well, you tell me which are which, and then I'll tell you who's living in stereotypes.
This is what needs to be challenged.
What?
We're all aware of the bloody past of the United States. That's what history books are for.
What?
But there are no textbooks for what the future will look like.
You're right. There are no textbooks for what the future will look like. I wonder why that is. What are we doing here?
It's a matter of speculation.
Yes. What will happen in the future is a matter of speculation. Thank you again, Top Tier. How does this relate to comics? I don't know. I just don't know.
But that's why we have speculative fiction.
Yes, that's why we have. Yeah, that's why we had flip cell phones, right? Because they look like communicators from Star Trek from decades previous. We're inspired by visions of the future from the past, and boy, you're just dropping knowledge bombs all over the place, man. I don't know what to do.
That's how we reach the youth. How many kids got to be introduced to the philosophies of John Calvin and Thomas Hobbes through Calvin and Hobbes? How many people got to look at the idea of colorism within the safe space created by the Boondocks?
Through allegory and clever storytelling. Allegory and clever storytelling. I obviously have not read our speaker's comic book. I really do hope he leans into allegory for telling his stories. I really do hope.
We need even more, because for all of us, the goal should be to create a better world for all of us.
Do you really want to put up Calvin and Hobbes as something that kids should read? I mean, it shows a sort of quasi middle class family, and there's not a lot of characters in Calvin and Hobbes that look like you. Unless you imagine the tiger, but I don't know.
And with comics, we have something that can reach the youth, get them to read, and give them ideas in brand new ways. We have something that can push people to that point of realization where they...
Comic books are not a new idea. Telling stories and teaching lessons through allegory is not a new idea. You are making a sales pitch for... Let's put it this way. You are pushing at a wide open door. So I have no idea why we're here, honestly.
Ideas in brand new ways. We have something that can push people to that point of realization where they can say, hey, maybe there's a different way to look at this. When I started seeing comics in this light, it stopped being something that I could use to make the world a better place and became something that I should use to make the world a better place.
Yes, you're on a mission. I understand.
And I think that's true for anyone who has the ability. But hey, that's just a matter of perspective. Thank you.
This was like the Seinfeld of TEDx's. And see, I don't need to elucidate you on what I mean by that, do I? Okay, well, let's move on to the wonderful world of the bingo card. I'm going to go over the bingo card one more time on my lonesome, or one more time? Yes, one more time on my lonesome. And then I will take arguments for squares yet to be circled. So let's start here. We are so close. All right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Never said explicitly, but you got to be kidding me if that was not a theme running through this entire talk, especially the we need to see ourselves and see myself and et cetera, right? And you know, and just in the basic unifying nature of comic books and anime and so on. So I don't think I'm off base when I circle that one. And I'm certainly not off base when I play this.
Give me a
Bingo.
silly. One
Bingo.
only, please.
Right?
Yeah!
That is a bingo. Our first bingo. All right, moving on from that, privilege. He never said it, but there was a heavy implication in the types of families you always see, and skiing and some activities and so on. And so, and representation in media. So I'm going to circle that one. I don't think I'm too far off the mark on that one. Patriarchy. He never did bring up like gender wars or anything. That was not the focus. So I don't think patriarchy makes any sense here. Weightless example. How many can I count? Skiing, educational CRT, George Floyd, Kyle Rittenhouse. You know, there are too many to count. So I'm going to circle weightless example. I think that wage gap. I mean, there were implications about classism or class, but there wasn't a wage gap. He never talked about like making, you know, like if he said something to the effect of, I make less than my white counterparts in the industry or something, then maybe something like that in the theme of the talk, but no. Feminism, no. Although I tell you, Miss Zaz or Screw the Roses character might be, I don't know. A list. He never gave us a formal list. And again, I have to be a stickler about this because it's too abstract otherwise. It has to be like, I have 5 steps for, or here's 3 reasons why or something. And as far as I recall, I mean, I'm happy to be corrected. He never said anything like that. White supremacy, not said explicitly, but in the course of media, characters, there are no black people in the future, etc., etc. Yeah, circling that one. Boy, oh boy, word salad. I don't know, guys. Do you think there was any doses of word salad amongst the several WTFs that I put out there? Do you think so? Well, I think so.
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
Bingo number 2. Okay. Okay, moving on. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. No. At no point did I have any notion that he was being down on himself, as far as I can tell. Argumentative non sequitur. Again, can I count the ways? Trying to even establish what his argument was. Comic books are good for kids to read. Okay, I guess that was his main point. So that makes the other 13 minutes of the presentation have absolutely nothing to do with his argument. So, yeah, okay. Moving on. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Okay, now, he didn't. And I know some of you might say the title of his comic book, but no, that's not a buzzword or buzz phrase. So unless you can point out to me something that was like something I like to call it. No, and the title, that sales fit for product or service. That's a product, that's not a buzzword. So, and then anecdote that probably never happened. Well, I could say that the bringing a gun across state lines and then mentioning Kyle Rittenhouse is an anecdote that actually did not happen. So that's a literal one, but I think I'll take it for the sake of argument and just to be a bit more of a completionist here. So let me circle that one. Okay, so that is where I'm at. I don't think I've missed any bingos I didn't call out, right? All right, so now I'll take arguments for squares yet to be circled. We already have 2 bingos. There may be a third one in there somewhere. I don't know. And be sure to tag me in your comment in the chat so I can see it more clearly. Let's see. No One Nowhere makes you wonder how much filler was in the comic. I'm curious now. I'm very curious about the comic and especially that one character. But let's see. McZemzem, that comic looks like it was produced by Fiverr. Hey, I as best as I can. Depending on the comic. That might just be the cover. Who knows what the interior art looks like, right? Yeah. I've seen bad covers and great interiors, so. Zeke Weiss, title of his comic is him writing on a name of a Marvel character unintentionally. Well, yeah, Blackheart, yeah, Mephisto's son, unless there's there could be other characters named Blackheart. That's the first one that comes to my mind. But, yeah, if it's in a different context, that's fine. As just searching the whole Blackheart gives you nothing but Marvel. Yeah, well, you can have Blackheart. That could be the name of the team. It's as long as it's different enough. He's not talking about like the son of Mephisto. He's probably in decent shape. Mr. Truck, anecdote that never happened. Entertainment doesn't cater to us. That's also true. That's also true. Tier Alexander does the Keeverdam job, which I'm sure Keeverdam did well at some point. Circle the whole card. Actually, I have to circle it twice, don't I? I'll do that at the end. I swear. I promise. I won't forget. Okay, I'll do it now because I'll probably forget. Okay, we do it a 1. And we will do it a very near on 2. So come on now. No, stop it. Paint is a very fickle program. What can I tell you? Okay, and then that's 2. Okay, you can tell that it's there. it ain't perfect, but you can tell that there's 2 circles there. Okay, it's kind of an eclipse. What can I tell you? Let's see. McZemzem, George Floyd can make for a great subject in a graphic novel. Not sure about comics. You could, again, allegory. You could find a way to tell that story without making it specifically about George Floyd. If you wanted to talk about something like that or have something that's similar, and then it wouldn't be dated. It wouldn't be, cemented into a specific point in time. There are ways to do it. Lots of people have done it. Zeke Weiss, beyond the WTF, I can't see much left to circle. I'm a little sketchy too. Eric Peters says a list could be circled. It could, but you need to give me an example. Can't just do it. Bridget. Where'd you go? There you are. Unfortunately, everything was spot on. No arguments, and that Lady Zaz was done better in an anime too. Ira Gamaguri is much funnier, and his love of punishment is integrated as well. I have no idea what you're talking about, but that just makes you cool for being a nerd about it. Right? Right. Let's see. Dylan Farnham can do a George Floyd Animaniacs crossover card. Yeah. Septus Wolf, he gave us a list with Attack on Titan and Mouse. He was listing comics. Yeah. See, this is why I have to be very strict about this. Just, saying things in order is not a list that is a component of the presentation, right? It has to be a marquee component of the presentation. Here's 3 steps to achieving equality, or here's 5 ways in order to make it in the comic book industry. I know I'm a stickler, but I don't want to give it too easy. If I start, and I did it plenty in the past, and that's why I've sort of changed it. Maybe I need to update the text to say, an official list or a specific, I don't know, an explicit list. How about that? Let's see. Let's see. No one nowhere. Issue number 1. Okay. Faithless, the Junkie Maniacs. Sure. Mystical Trunk, or the things I call, then list them. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, something where the speaker, whoever it is, doesn't matter the presentation, is making that a component, a primary component of their argument, and lists them off in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Or like you say, or the buzzword, that thing too. Yeah. But I didn't see that here, unless somebody's got a really good argument. And Dylan Farm, how about a coloring book of police shooting? Oh, geez. There's a coloring book of serial killers. A friend of mine got me that for Christmas a couple years ago. I have that in my bedroom somewhere. I haven't touched it, but it's there. I think that's going to call it there, guys. I think that's a double bingo and a double WTF because, man, there you go. Mr. Trunk says maybe change the square to formal explicit list. Yeah. I'm thinking for clarity in the future, I might do that. So, I'm also, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if weightless example and argumentative non sequitur aren't 2 sides of the same coin. I'm going to have to think on that one because the more I think about it, those might be the same thing now that I think about it. But anyway, those are arguments and discussions for later. If you'd like to have some suggestions for squares you'd like to see on the card, by all means, tweet them to me at @scribe_light on Twitter. And so that's going to call it there, guys. 2 bingos, and I got to play my 2 new bingo stingers. Yay! And I wasn't just, ginning up the results to do that. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned something from this, although I pretty much didn't because everything he said was knowledge I already possessed. But hey, there you go. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can find me right here again Thursday night, next Thursday, same time, same bat time, same bat channel, for another episode of TED Excellence. And this coming Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern will be the Sunday stream, where I'm going to cover something. I think I've got it picked out, but I don't want to say for sure because I don't want to disappoint anybody. So you'll just have to tune in and find out along with me. But otherwise, everyone, thank you again for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. And saying that, I completely forgot at the top of the chat box, if you'll turn your attention, if only briefly, to the 3 GoFundMes up there for Angry Illinoisian, His Kitten, and Shady Grin. They and or their friends and loved ones could really use your help. If you happen to have a spare $1 or 3, please take a look at those. And there, too, your generosity is very much appreciated. But with that, everyone, I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.